Okay, so so we have seen some part of JSP yesterday, like what was architecture and all, right? So today we'll start with some APIs. What exactly are there in JSP API? So JSP API is basically found under javax.servlet again. So under this we have a package called javax.servlet.jsp. This is the main package where all the JSP APIs are embedded actually, right? And this package contains two interfaces. The first interface is JSP page, and the second interface is HTTP JSP page. These are the two interfaces which we have, and there are many classes as such, like you have JSP writer, you have as you have something called print writer, right? So parallel to that you have JSP writer, you have page context, right? And you have some JSP error, right? There are so many classes as such. You have JSP exception. So we will be looking out all these methods as such, right? But yes, under the JSP class, which is in the servlet package, so there are so many interfaces, and there are classes inside a direct class. Methods inside a direct class as such. So among them, the interface which is mainly used across when we actually work on is HTTP JSP page, right? Where your do service, which is underscore JSP service, will be there, right? So the division is like this. Your JSP page implements something called servlet interface, right? Servlet is implemented by in your JSP page, so that as we were discussing previously, that the JSP is something which internally works completely as a servlet. So JSP page is the main a component which inherits or implements servlet interface, and in turn JSP page is inherited by HTTP page, right? So that's what happens. So in the life cycle, which is your JSP initialize, JSP service, and JSP destroy, right? So initialize and destroy are handled in JSP page interface, right? And the only method which always get triggered, right, which is JSP service, right? It is invoked in your HTTP page interface. Anyways, to the outside world, whenever you create a page and when you start a page, deploy a page and run it up, right, you won't feel that this is happening. But this is something which happens inside, right? All these interfaces will work together in order to get an output of a page, right? So basically you can see here, in order to process your JSP, HTTP page interface is the main component here, which actually processes the data, right? And that's why this underscore, which we are giving an prefix to JSP service, is something which cannot be overridden by any other class or any other whenever you actually import this part, right? It can happen only in one class, that too one interface, that in HTTP page, right? So that is about the actual package of where exactly the JSP is placed and what exactly are the different components we have, right? Let's create a simple JSP page and we'll see how to deploy that and all, right? So you can just right click either on web content or your project. So just select JSP file here, right? And if you don't find a JSP file, sometimes in some type of projects, or if you have downloaded some other Eclipse patterns, right, you can just go to other, right, just type in JSP, you will get it under web, right? Just select JSP file, right, click on next and here just give some page name. Let me give some index .jsp. So either you can give .jsp or you can just leave as these, right? So because whenever you click on finish, right, so it will take it as JSP because you are in JSP, direct JSP. That's why it will take index.jsp directly, right? Yeah, perfect. Now here you can see there are a few components which we have to understand here first. So this is like a complete HTML page, but only thing, in order to make it as a JSP page, right? So we will be using something called directive, page directive, where we will mention something called language as Java. Let me create one HTML page and we'll see the difference. Let me create HTML as something, my page.html. Right? You can see here they are almost the same. Everything from doc type, everything will be same as you have in HTML. There won't be any difference, right? And the only difference which you can see is something called the directive, right? If you do some page directive and just say language as Java, which means it will follow a JSP patterns, right? It will actually import the things whatever we can do in JSPs, right? So simply giving the name JSP will not work. If you remove this part, your JSP will completely become an HTML, right? This page directive is something which is very important. Anyways, we'll see. We also have something called what are directives. We have a separate topic on directives. We'll check out what exactly happens in that, right? Now, so if you can see this division, right, the HTML division. So this was a directive, and here you can see this is something which is plain HTML, which we have already seen, plain HTML part, right? The HTML head, your meta, if you have any metadata things to define, and then you have your title, right, and some other thing. And I was talking about doc type. Doc type is something which gives the rendering model of a page. It explains, like your current page is compatible with what, right? So as you can see here, you can actually see something called HTML and some version, right? If you do this version, which means your page, the current index of JSP can work best on this version of HTML. So currently it is HTML 4.0, right? Which means it needs at least a browser which can support HTML 4.0 and above, so that your page can look in much better way, right? Sometimes you would have seen in some websites that even if you open a page and if you try to click on any button or any link, it won't, you won't be able to do that, right? That is because they would have developed in a lower HTML versions, and whenever it upgrades, right, some things may not work, right? Everything should work, but actually few things may not work because the browser may not be compatible with that, right? So that's why they say that whenever you actually develop some web application, right, you follow some you follow some documentation that your application should be compatible with your, let's say, Firefox and Chrome, right? Then then which means in your regular project, right, while developing and while testing in a complete SDLC cycle, right, you will follow both the browsers, and you won't actually consider the remaining browsers because your application is compatible with only those things, right? It happens. So in the same way, it can be IE, right, which is mostly used browser, right? So that is something which is a browser compatibility testing which you are doing, right? Because whenever you write any CSS or any JavaScript, right, you have to write the same method or the same CSS component if you are actually mentioning something called background color. Let's take an example of for an element which is a frame or a body, let us say, right, you are actually giving some gradient background, right? So it will work in Mozilla in one way, and it can work in Firefox in a different way, which means based on the browser you have to give different same attribute of background but different for different browsers. It happens. So when you actually start up with your web development, right, you will be seeing these things in a simple component of CSS, right, which means you're actually making your web application compatible with multiple browsers, right? And if you don't give this line, which is doc type, it will also accept this, right? It will also accept this, which means this you are not actually restricting your page with some HTML version, but it doesn't mean that this page will work in any single browser or not. No, that is not the case actually. But yes, if you are mentioning something here, which means you are actually following some pattern, so that you can understand, okay, this has to be followed by a browser which supports HTML 4.0, right? So that is what are the different components whenever you create a JSP by default in Eclipse, right? And the remaining things are few things are same as such. So let's run this, deploy this project and see how actually it works now. So this title part is something where you can actually give your name. Let's say my first something, right? And so in this body you can actually print something. Let us say welcome to my page, something, right? You can directly do something. It will take the text inside a body component if you write it directly as a direct text as such, right? So this is our first JSP as such. Now why I have taken index.jsp is whenever we deploy this project, right? So I was explaining this web.xml. In this configuration file, even this configuration file is same as what we have learned in servlets, right? It works in the same way. The welcome file list, which you can see, right? You can actually create either any of the welcome file list, right? It can be index.html, anything, or default.jsp and all, right? Because most of the projects follow either index or default as a startup page. So no one uses home.html or home.jsp's or home.aspx or php, right? That's why they just gave some examples of these, fine. So now here the question can be, if I create all the pages, what happens, right? It will take the first one, right? It will take the first resource, whatever is available, but never do that part, because sometimes if your container finds the two resources at a time, right, then it will be a problem. So always try to keep whatever page you have created. Let us say I've created index.jsp, just keep that as a welcome page and remove the remaining, because it is just that your Eclipse is providing few things that you can actually select any one of them, right? So this is my index.jsp. So whenever you deploy this part and if you run it using the direct URL, it will directly go to index.jsp, right? That's what happens. Now let's go to Tomcat, which we have already configured here, right? So if you want to see how to configure, let me just delete this. I'll show you again how to configure. Right? Now you can see here you don't have any of the servers being configured, right? Either you can configure from here, right, or you can directly run it up so that it can actually give you something called your Tomcat is not configured. Let me just go through this. When you click on this again, you can see yes, your Eclipse is compatible with so many web servers. So let me select Tomcat 7.0, right, and let me say next. Now you can see it is not asking for path. Why? Because I already have a folder of servers here, and the path which I gave to my Tomcat server is already been configured. So this is asking which project you want to add to this server. So adding the project is nothing but deploying the project in my Eclipse. When I click on finish, now you can see your Tomcat is Tomcat instance generated here, and you have your web JSPs, which is my project name, got created here, right? So let me start my project here. Right. So when I click on this, so it will ask which instance you want to use first time. Just select this part and just say always use this server when running this project, and click on finish. So this will take you to your index.jsp, and as I said, if you don't want to give the name of page, you can directly give the URL, the home URL, right? Let me just open up my browser here. So here, let me give the URL here, and click on this. You can see it directly goes to index.jsp, and you cannot see the resource here, which means you are directly calling internal servlet of your index.jsp, right? So that is what is a simple JSP which we have, right? Now, so let's see simple query string first, because query string is something which we'll be working on mainly. Again, here even in JSPs, right, the query string pattern, creation of query string and all is same as HTML which we have seen in servlets. So in order to generate the query string, we have already seen that we used to go to form, right? Form element. So you have to give some action here, right? So here, during servlets, we used to give something called the name of a servlet directly here, right? But here what we are interested more is, so we'll be giving a JSP, right? Or an HTML, or an servlet. You can give any resource you have here, right? So as of now, let me just delete this HTML. Let me take a page here. Let's say JSP file. Let me take it as page 1 maybe, right? Now if you do next, right, so it will take you to the next template, next screen, where you have to select your JSP template. You can actually choose what exactly you want to do. Let us say you want to actually make your JSP compatible with HTML, right? Now you can select this. There are so many things. You have a JSPs. If you are creating any Java server page, which can be HTML or XHTML, right? You can select either over. But by default, it will be a HTML markup page, right? That's what we have got. Click on finish. Now this is something which is the next page. Let's say, right? Let me close under.xml. Now, so what we are going to do here is, so we will create a simple form in my index.jsp, right? And what we are going to do here is, we want to pass some details from this page to this page, where we have seen in servlet. So whatever you select, username and password, let's say, from your login.jsp, right? We move the complete details to the servlet. The pattern will be completely same here, even here, right? So let us first see how we can actually move from index.jsp to page1.jsp. Then we'll see something called how we can actually move the query string, right? First say this is my second JSP, right? So here what you're going to do is, let me just give the name action. You can use something called page1.jsp, right? And inside you can just say input. So here your Eclipse is intelligent enough to provide all the attributes and all the internal components of your element, which is input. Let's say type, I want submit type here, and take up the value. Let's go, right? A simple page where I'm taking a form and a simple button here, right? So which will take me to the direct resource called page 1. That's my thing. So let me restart the server. So either you can restart your server or just rebuild your project, right? Both the things, what it does is, it will just take you, it will just recompile everything, right? And it will actually, you can see here, it will completely republish this content, the web content to a Tomcat, right? Now let me go back again, refresh this. Now you can see welcome to the page and go. So when I click on go, you can see it goes to the second page, which is my second page. This is a simple way how we can actually move from one resource to other resource, right? Now that is how we can actually write interconnected between the pages, right? Now in the same way, you can also mention in this way. Let me just remove this page1.jsp. Let me run this project once, clean, republish, go back here. Let me go to this and click on go, right? You can see initially it gives an error, right? Basically it should take the servlet, but anyways we haven't started it, we haven't actually made it so huge. So we'll see that. So whenever we mention a direct thing, right, it will actually take up the page. We'll see where exactly it works, right? As of now, just give page1.jsp, don't worry about that. I'll show you where exactly we can use that part. So this is a simple way where we have. Yeah, Ursula?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you say just? I couldn't hear it well. If we don't give .jsp, what will happen?
The thing is, if you don't give this JSP, right, what happens is it will go to the servlet part of page 1, right? Which means internally the page 1 will have its own servlet, right? Page 1.jsp.
Okay.
Right? So that servlet will be called, and anyways the processing will be same. Right?
Okay.
But normally we do mention the extension. It can be JSP HTML. We have to mention the extension. Right?
So by default it takes servlet if you don't mention.
By default, it will just go to the resource. If you don't do anything, right, which means it will feel that it's a servlet, right? And we already have a page whenever it runs, right? It will be internally converted to servlet with the name called page 1, right? So it will move to that. So that's what happens actually normally, right? We'll see how it happens, how it goes. Fine. So that is about a simple JSP and how we'll be working on that. Now let's start with our topic. So we'll be using these two itself. We'll see how we can actually write something in this. Now first let us start with scripting elements. I was talking about something called, you can actually write, if you have a JSP, you can have your HTML plus code, right? So we'll see how we can actually write a code in JSP. It is Java code, right? So you can actually write code, writing a Java code in JSP, right? In order to write that, you have to use some scripting elements. Very important thing. And you have 3 different scripting elements in Java. The first one is scriptlet, and I said elements, which means it points to something called tags, right? So it is a scriptlet tag, and you have expression tag, right? And then you have declaration tag. Okay. So these are 3 different scripting elements in JSP, using which you can actually write your own Java code inside a JSP in between HTML code, and you can do that. Now first let us start with scriptlet. We'll see different things in scriptlet too, right? So scriptlet is something where you can actually write code, but the code should be written inside this format. Right? So this is a format which you will create in Java HTML code, JSP code, where internal to that you can write something. Now let us go and see whether it happens or not, right? Now, in my first page, which is index.jsp, let me write a simple code path. Maybe I can write it here. When you just give this angle bracket and percentile, right, it will give you an option to write something. Now inside this, I can write a simple code, like I'll create a string, let us say lstr, some name, something called some Sam, right? And I can actually make use of my out. You can see JSP writer, because JSP writer will be created in the page, as I said, right? In an interface of Java JSP API, right? You have internal classes, which is one of classes JSP writer, right? You can just say dot write of, let us say, lstr username, right? So here I've just written some code here. I've just taken some thing here, and maybe if you want, you can also use all the patterns of string concatenation and everything you can do. Right? Something here. So now let's go back. So here, let me just say break here, and after this page is done, let's say break. So this is something where you are actually writing your code inside your these tokens, right? Whatever you write here, which means you are writing something which will be compiled, because for Java code it needs a compilation, right? So that will be compiled as we have already seen in our previous architecture, right? So whenever JSP gets converted, JSP translator will convert this to servlet.java, right? Then it will be compiled. Then this code will actually go and work as such, right? So let me run this page once. You can see here Sam and hello. Right? Where this is how you actually write a code using what scripted. So this pattern is called as a scripted. Right? So in the same way, you can actually write scripted in any page. So let us move ahead with one more step. So let me create an input here. So I want to send something in query string and I want to read in the page, which is a JSP page. We'll see how we can do that. So let's take a type and give a name, because name attributes something which will actually be used in order to formulate a query string. Right? So let's go back here. So this is my username, break. So let me give it as name, and you have password. Take one more input of type text, and then you have your name as PWD. So let's take a simple one, break here, and one more break, and let's use one more break over here so that we can have some gap on that, right? Perfect. Now this is a simple form which we have created where we are actually giving an action as page1.jsp, right? And we just said yes, these are the details which I am submitting and I want to pass it on, right? Now first let us save it up, run this project once. So refresh this. You can see our name and password and click on go, right? So let me give some name here and password something and click on go. Now you can see here, this is a page which is page1.jsp, and the query string pattern will be same as we have learned in servlets, and there won't be any difference because internally it is actually converting back to servlet. So in servlet, whenever it gets a form, it will actually convert the complete thing into that. No worry, it is not your servlet is actually creating a query string, it is HTML which is creating a query string for the resource you are actually mentioning it as an action, right? So that's what happens. Even if you are using a simple HTML page, and if you create a form, and if you write a simple code, right, it will also create a HTML, query string, which will take you to the next level. Fine. So that's how it is being created over here. Fine. Now the question is, how can we read the query string in my page? It's a JSP page, right? It is not a code, it is not a servlet. If it is a servlet, you can actually write in some code and do that. So if it is a page, how can I do that? So you can actually use scripted part to read the data again. Let's go back to this page, right? And let us see how we can actually read that. Let me give a break here. Now here, let me start with scripted, right? Because you can actually write some code to read the data, right? So here, let me take a string username is equal to, remember, everything will be same as we have seen in servlet. The only thing is, we will be writing the complete code inside a scripted. That's it. That will be the only change which we have. So how we used to read a query string in servlets is same. We used to use a request component, which is you can see here HTTP servlet request will be imported. How? So this request is nothing but it will be an argument to a function called JSP service, right? So we have seen in servlets that in service method, where either you call do get or do post, right, the arguments you will be getting the request object to your argument, which is HTTP servlet request, and whatever you are sending to the next component, you will send it through the response. The same thing happens here. But internally, whenever your JSP executes, right, internally your JSP is ready with your request, right? Just say dot get parameter, right? And you have to give a parameter here. Now let me give the parameter as the uname because it's a username we have. Right? Same way, take your string, just say password is equal to request dot get parameter of your password pwd. Right? So this is how you can actually read the query string in a JSP. Right? So if you know this part, then it's done. It's almost done, right? Because you have your data with you. Now you just have to print out. Now how to print? There are so many ways, but let us just first say I'm using my out here and just say dot write. Just say welcome. We'll be using the same thing. Username plus we'll just give some password in my braces. We just gave a simple place here, right? We just read the data and we printed it out. So just be alert here because we are writing everything inside a scripted. We are not even touching any HTML part, but we are doing complete painting of my page inside my scripted itself, right? Using my out. Out will work as same as a print writer in there, but this is something which is a object of JSP writer. And this JSP writer is something which you can see here. JSP writer will get an object from your HTTP servlet response, which is internal argument of your JSP service. Right? That's what happens. Now let me run this, restart this. So go back to this page, give some name and some password, click on go. Right, now you can see you have your query string here and you can actually get the data here. Now in the same way as I've seen that if you change anything in your query string, let's say I'm doing some garbage here, password set, click on that, everything will be changed. So for my current page, this is something which will be populated in your HTTP servlet request object. Right? Whatever you're going to change here, right, will directly affect your page. Right? That's why we always go for, if you are actually creating any search engine or anything, right, you always have to use some query string pattern, right, so that if you are searching something, let's say if you went to Google and just search something called Java books and you found some details and you click on some page, right, and if you want to send it, you can actually send the complete search, right. So in Google search itself, you can see some query string and the patterns like Java plus books and all that. That is something where your Google page is creating a query string where you can see all the details, whatever you can see in a search page. The same thing happens here. Right? So this is how you can actually make a query string from one page to other page, and this is how you can read. Now you can see for reading, I'm using I'm depending on complete scriptlet. Right? You have to write a scriptlet in order to get your query strings back to your page. Right? So this is something which is called as a scriptlet. Right? Where we will be using something called these tags in order to read that. Right? Now let's see what is an expression tag here. Expression tag is again the same pattern, but the only difference is, now you can see in scriptlets, right? You can see here in scriptlets we normally write each and every line as a statement which we used to write in normal Java classes or servlets, right? It is again the same, but how expression works is, again the expression pattern is same, which is this. The only difference is you have got something called equal to, which means this expression tag is used to paint or print something on a page directly without semicolon. Now let me go back here and show you how it works. Now let us say I have got my username here and password here, and I can actually go to some expression is equal to, this will make your expression, and just give username. That's it. Oops. Username. That's it. No semicolons or nothing. You can just say username colon your expression. Just break it up. Okay. And you can just say username is something where you're actually giving me some. Right? Now this is something which is an expression. Now you can notice here there won't be any semicolons here, and you can't declare anything. I can't write any code here. You can just take the variable whatever you have defined in a scriptlet or anywhere, and you can just give that variable over here. That's what you can do, right? Now if you run this page, you can see that. Okay, so let me go back to index.jsp. Right, we have here this something and some name. Go. Now you can see username is key. Right? Now this is what is called as an expression. Now expression can be used only for that, right? Maybe, yeah, Sunita.
Place of a variable, can we have like a simple built-in function which returns a value? For example, like length of string. Instead of the variable, can I use that variable as a function parameter and use that function call there?
Function call, you can do it in declaration, not in expression.
Not an expression, okay.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll write one declaration and then we'll try to do that same thing in expression. Okay, not to worry.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah.
Ujjwala here.
Yeah, Ujjwala.
So instead of scriptlet, we can use this expression all the time, right?
Yes.
So suppose if we don't have that scriptlet right now, so how can we write the username? Means we have to write the request directly parent outside.
Yes. You can directly. So it needs a direct value type. That's it. Right? It needs something which can actually return a direct value type. That's it. Okay. It can be anything. Right? You can just see when I refresh this page, right? You can see Kim. Right? Go back and Kim some Kimers. You can see this. But the only thing what expression needs is it needs something which directly gives a value. Right? That is okay. Now here there is one more thing which you have to keep in mind here. You can actually split up your scriptlets. It is not that you have to write only at some place. You can write scriptlet anywhere. I can write this scriptlet even before my HTML. Right? You can write a code anywhere you want. But the only thing is keep in mind that whenever it converts to servlet, right, each and every line will be executed at a time. That's what happens. That's what happens in scriptlet. Fine. Anyways, you can write it here. Maybe you just got your query string here, and if you want to, paint it in somewhere, right, you can just create one more scriptlet here and just copy this out here. You can do that. Everything will work as if it is executing each and every line as such, right? It will print up and then it will print this up and then your username will be printed. So this is how it works. Let me save and show you that the output will never change because you are actually following some pattern, right? Let me refresh this, and you have this, let's say something, and then some password. Click on go, running. Right now you can see the same username and password you got that, right? And here you whenever you are designing some page, you won't even just see that okay, this is where I'm actually defining, and you can see I've actually split it into different divisions. This is one of my division where I'm getting something, and this is something which I'm printing it up. But it feels internally this code, these three lines will be on the same pace, right? That's how it happens, right? So this is something where we are actually giving some. Now, Ujjwala?
It might be a silly question, but what if we write that scriptlet below this expression tag? What will happen like?
Okay, you want to write this below this? Yeah, it will be
all the scriptlet, not printing only.
Okay, this complete thing, you mean? Okay, below this? Yeah, it will work. First it will print this. Yeah.
So how does
No. First it will print this part. I mean, it will run the same in a sense. It will first print this, then you go back to this, take this up, take this and print. Let me just show you that. Okay, so here let us say some value and my password. Click on go. First it will print the username and then says welcome Kiran.
Okay, so means when the page loads, it takes the values it is just a matter of printing it, right? Expression values.
No. See, if I try to use a variable here, right? See here, it won't give the variable. Can you see? It won't, because
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it would be
because we get parameter.
Exactly. No, that thing should be there. That is for sure. That's what I said. You can write snippet anywhere, but you should maintain the sequence. Right? Now you can see it is taking username. Yeah, it happens here.
Okay.
It is not like you can't. Exactly. Right, I understood your question. So that is how you should do it, right? Okay. So now here itself you can do one more thing. Let us say you want to print some HTML for multiple times, right? Let us say you have a table. I'm just taking an example, right? How you can actually expand your scripted. As such, it's a very powerful scripting tool we have in JSP. Let us say I have a table row. Close this up, and you have your TD. Close this up, right? Now here, let us say in this TD I want to have multiple rows. So TR is something which is row and TD is something which is cell, right? So what I want to do is I want to have multiple rows dynamically. I don't know how many rows are we getting, right? Now even in that case you can actually use your scriptlet. Now how to do that is, now in my scriptlet I'll write my for loop. It will allow you to write a for loop again, right? For int I is equal to 0, but you can't actually get the complete intelligence here. When you write for and control space and enter, it won't give the complete. You have to write it up, right? Anyways, it doesn't matter. Let us say I is equal to 1 or 0. So you have I less than, let's say, some 10 elements I want, and you have I plus plus, right? You have open and close. Now here you are writing something scripted over here. Now what I'll do here is I'll split this scripted, and the close part I'll cut it and we'll paste it here. Right? I'm not doing anything, I'm just writing a simple HTML code, but I'm actually keeping that, embedding that, collaborating that inside the scripted where I'm actually writing my for loop. Right? Now here let me write something. Here let me write a expression now. Right? What I'll do, I'll just say username. I'll take a username, right? And I'll just integrate with my value of I, which is plus, I can just say space, right? Because this complete thing will give as a value, right? I can give that. No problem with that, right? Just completely. So now, which means whenever it runs, right, what it will do, it will create multiple rows, right? Where it will create username and it will actually append with the value. Now let me run this. Let us give some breaks here. It all is about your imagination, guys, how to use, but it is, you can use actually in whatever way you want, right? Your scriptlet will support that, right? Now let me go back and restart, recompile this project, restart the server. This. So it will give null because I'm in page 1. Let me remove this page 1. Right now. So name is here. Let me give some name here and go something, and page, password, click on code. Now you can see, right? It took the username, right? You can see it printed the same thing in 10 times. Now you can imagine that if you want to get any data, right? If you want to get anything from any data from a class, right? And if you want to print, you can actually do that part in here, right? Which is we can use a scripted part to get the data and do that. We can also call a class here. Let me just extend this to one more step ahead. One more step, which means let me just create a class over here. So let me call it as CLS global something. Right. So in this my CLS global, let me write some data here, which is let me just say public So string array maybe. I want to send string array. So we'll send some details here, get some data, something, right? And here what we'll do is that try catch. So I'll create some string array of let us say some lstr arr data is equal to, I'll create some strings here. Let us say some things are here. Right. Few things, right? I just created and I'll just return the data. Data, and let's say if there is an exception, let's return none. Right? So I'm just returning something like this. So what I'm going to do is, whenever, let us first see how we can actually call. So this calling is same again. I hope you would have got by this time. You can directly create an object of your class. If you say CLS globals over here, right, it will directly call, it will directly get your class over here, right? And you can just create, let us say obj is equal to new CLS globals. Right? CLS globals. Right? You have created your own object here, right? And you can use this object to get the data. Let us say you have your string array. Let us say lstr arr data is equal to obj dot, you have your get some data, right? Click on that, right? Now this is some data which you will be getting over here. Now this is something which will be dynamic, let us say, right? Dynamic, and you want to show the data over here. Now obviously you can just use this same for loop maybe, right, to do this. Let me use that path. Let me just say I is equal to 0 and I less than this dot length, right? And inside what I can do, I can just use this lstr data of index. That's it. Right? I'm getting something dynamically here, right? Through some class. Let me just run this project once. So let's go back to a page. Take some password, click on go. Oops. What happened here? Unable to compile the class. CLS globals cannot be resolved. Why it cannot be resolved? It should be actually. Let me create a package once. com.sr. some globals, and let me move this to this package. Let me delete this globals, CLS globals you have, and we have got a package here. Now go back to page 1. You can see it imported, the package will get directly imported whenever you, if you don't have this type, and you click on CLS globals, you can see it will add this class and it will directly import this. Don't worry about that. Always try to create separate segment for classes and use that class. Right? Now let's go back and try again. You can see this one. Now what happened now is, so as we created class directly, right, a default, a page was not able to actually define where exactly is a default class, right? That's why we just gave some package name, right? Some directory where I just imported the package, right? So we don't have to actually write all this in. We'll learn this, how we can actually, what is this directory, what is the page directory, inside this what is implicit object we have. We'll learn all those things, right? But as of now, whenever we create an, we just try to access any class which is under some directory, right? It directly imported that directory over here, right? And then what happened? It directly called up something, and we got the data, whatever data we have, done there, and you got the data over here. which is this. Right? So this is how you can actually use a scriptlet and expression. No, sorry, exactly expression there, right? So in different ways. Right? Where you have seen, I have combined both the scriptlets and expressions as such over here. Right? So this is something which is your scriptlet and expression. Right? And the next one is declaration. So declaration again is same as the previous things, right? Which is like the pattern will be same, which is this, but only thing is you will be using this as an exclamatory mark. This is your declaration tag. Now there is one difference between, it's a major difference between your scriptlet and expression and your declaration. The main difference is your declaration will be called in init method. Whenever you just follow this pattern, right, your init method will be called, which means your declaration part of code will be executed only once throughout the application lifecycle, right? Until your application is up and running, your declaration would have executed only once. But only once, maybe when a JSP is getting a first request, at that time this code will be called, or whenever you bring your server up, right, even that time whenever servlets get excited, right, then this declaration tag will be called from JSP. This completely works inside your init, or basically outside the service method. It may not be inside init, initialize, it will always work outside a service method, right? Because whatever you define inside a service, that is something which will be called every time whenever you get a request. But the declarations is something which will work outside. And yes, as Sunita was saying, this declaration is something which is used to define a method itself. You can declare a variable directly, right? If you just want to declare something like variables and methods, if you want to write some method here like concatenation, we'll see the same example how we can actually write a method, concatenate, and how we can actually use the same method in the same JSP. Now we'll see that part when we actually write a simple, when we write a simple method here, and we'll call that up, right? So that is what we'll be using this declaration part for, right? So we will see this part tomorrow. Let us just wind up the class here. Fine. So you guys have any doubts till this part? Hello?
Srinu?
Yeah, Johnny.
Srinu?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, Johnny.
Yeah. Many things that are that we can do in service can be done, can also be done in
Many things, sorry?
Hello?
Yeah, Johnny, yeah, go on. What is that?
What we can do with there is some background noise.
There is some background noise actually. I think, yeah, go on now, Johnny.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so if you say like what is the basic difference between servlet and a JSP?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it comes, in JSP we can intermingle with HTML. Is that how it is? It differs from the.
Okay, so the basic difference.
Point of view, what is
Yeah, the basic difference between JSP and servlet, I can say in this way. JSP is a yeah. Hello.
Hello. Srinu, I can't.
Hello. Yeah, Johnny, can you hear me now? Hello, Johnny, can you hear me?
Did you say anything?
No, can you hear me now? So there was some disturbance going on. So is it okay now? Hello, hi Johnny, can you hear me now? Johnny, I think you have to unmute yourself because I can see you muted. Is like the servlet is something which is like a brain, and JSP is something which is like a face. Whatever you think in servlet, right, will be painted back to the page. That's what happens. But here in JSP, you can write both the HTML and the servlet part here itself. You don't need a servlet to write any code. But yes, if you want to write a bigger logics in order to move from one page to other page and all, right? So that is where we use servlet as a controller, right? So once the JSP is done, right, we'll be writing one MVC model using the servlets and JSP. Then I hope you'll understand how basically they interact. But basically JSP is something which is a combination of both HTML and Java code. So whenever you say Java code, this is nothing but a servlet. You are writing your code which goes into servlet. Fine? So that's what happens. Okay. So JSP will make the presentation layer easy with as it is giving support to write direct HTML. That's a simple thing. But in servlet you have to write a print writer and you have to remember each and everything so that you can interpret that in a string. That's the main difference we have, right? But JSPs are something which are more, above layer of servlet. But yes, unless until you have your servlet, your JSP will not work. That's how it is stacked. Right? As we move on with the class, right, as we create some more servlets and we tag the servlets with JSPs and JSP with servlet, then you will understand much how it is working. You can actually connect a JSP to servlet, a servlet to JSP now. Right?